Undeterred by production difficulties, we continue on. Third time's the charm. The relative freedom which we enjoy depends on public opinion. The law is no protection. Governments make laws, but whether they are carried out and how the police behave depends on the general temper in the country. If large numbers of people are interested in freedom of speech, there will be freedom of speech, even if the law forbids it. If public opinion is sluggish, inconvenient minorities will be persecuted, even if laws exist to protect them. Words of Eric Blair, aka George Orwell. You knew we weren't getting through a sermon, even the third time around, without an Orwell reference. Now, it seems self evident that the will of the people is to be carried out regardless of what the laws are, and that if the will of the people is not behind it, even if there are laws there to protect it, that it's not going to exist. It seems like there should be some intrinsic linkage between the will of the people and what the leaders choose to do with that and the trends with the law. So somebody explain this one to me. First of all, I want to wish Joe a happy Father's Day. It's a tremendous little family you put together here, my friend. I mean, exemplary. Something to be looked after. We'll get into the verdict later. I'm not going to belabor it here in the opener, but this was nothing more than a distraction, regardless of how I felt about the verdict, from the larger things that are going on this week and how they speak to the intrinsic linkage between the people and the will of their leaders and the laws that are there to protect them. You guys may have missed that this week. The mainstream media barely covered it at all, and I didn't really realize how they're getting around covering something so important until I started the show prep and took a look at what the propaganda ministry had to say about it. But here's the long and the short of it. The Saudis ditched their deal with us, their long-standing arrangement, 80 plus years. They call it the petrodollar. Basically, they agree to sell their oil only denominated in US dollars. They had a chance to renew that for another 50 years. They neglected to do so because they know where we're headed. Unfortunately, they just contributed to saving themselves, and it could be responsible for our own demise, because literally the only two things propping up the US dollar right now are the fact that oil is traded in it and the fact that we have arguably the most powerful, though neglected, military machine on the planet that is consistently and unconstitutionally misused. I digress. It seems that there should be a public outcry about this, and it seems that the law would back the will of the people on something like that, especially with so much at stake. But that's not the way when you are dealing with a regime that has been compromised. Let's not kid ourselves. He has said from the beginning, throughout the campaign, take 9 seconds on Google to find out what he had to say. He swore outright to break us away from fossil fuels. This was following a 4-year period when, for the first time in the previous 60 years, we became a net energy exporter. Do you realize that during Donald Trump's first term, at one point, the Iranians launched missiles into Saudi oil fields? You probably weren't even aware of that. Why? Because we didn't have to get involved. Why? Because we were a net energy exporter. We were energy independent, and we didn't have to give a damn what a bunch of goat humping savages were doing, playing My God Can Beat Up Your God on the other side of the world. It was a glorious time to be alive, and public opinion stays with that, in spite of what the propaganda machine may be telling you. But again, we're completely disconnected. The regime in power, completely compromised, kills the Keystone Pipeline, takes away fracking, takes away use of the tar sands, does everything he could to do what he said he was going to do. Get us away from fossil fuels. Complete disconnect. Unbelievable when you look at it. The depth of the lies. But a great American, General George Washington, once said that truth will ultimately prevail where there are pains taken to bring it to light. I'll go General Washington one better here. Truth will ultimately prevail no matter what pains are taken to bury it. Those pains are a lot more effective here, uneducated electorate, though we may be possessed of here in this country. But even here, we've hit a tipping point. How ironic that George Washington led us in a war of independence to free ourselves from European bonds. Yes, I'm counting the UK as part of Europe. We can dicker about that later. Dicker, I hardly know her. The point is this: Europe is now leading the way. That's Marine Le Pen and Geert Wilders. You have heard them referred to by the United States media, even Fox on occasion, as being right-wing extremists, nationalists, xenophobes, even. Yeah, that's right. It's the X word. That is an X word, right? Right? It's X. Yeah, X, not C. Okay, yeah. That's the X word. Marie Le Pen and Geert Wilders. Why? Because they're taking care of their people, because they can see the overwhelming weight, crushing weight of foreign refugees that are incompatible with European cultures are tearing their nations to pieces. And for that, they get labeled right-wing extremists and fascists. Speaking of people getting labeled as fascists, this is Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Let's just all bask in the radiant glow of her blonde-haired, blue-eyed beauty for a moment before we go on. Everyone, you with me? Deep breath. Georgia on my mind. Where was I? Oh, yeah. They labeled her a Nazi. They literally said in the mainstream press that she was the reincarnation of Benito Mussolini. Look that up. I am not exaggerating. How odd then that she's got the full support of her own people and has incurred the wrath of the European Union as a result. But no one knows the wrath of the European Union like this man. This is Viktor Orban, president of Hungary. The grand total of refugees and asylum seekers that he's taken in since the European Union handed down that order, wait for it, guys, drum roll please, 0. That's right, none, zip, nada. As a result, his country is crime-free, his country is terrorism-free, his country is economically functional, and he has the full support of his Christian nation behind him. It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Not according to Brussels. Not according to the European Union. They hit him with a $200 million fine this week and said that they will continue to fine him $1 million a week until he opens his borders like the rest of Europe has done. Talk about a disconnect. Why are these right-wing extremists, these reborn fascists, why do they have the support of the European people? Why are they coming to power? Why is Viktor Orban so damned popular? Because he truly believes in the weight of the people, and he truly believes in his nation, and he has open eyes and two brain cells to rub together. Enough to know that multiculturalism has failed, that Europe is being buried and eroded from within. And to look at Brussels, you'd almost have to believe, you'd be compelled to believe that it was by design. Why do they keep doing this? Getting back to the Orwell quote. It's public opinion that matters, right? Not when that public opinion is disconnected from the leaders who are making the laws. But the leaders should look at the will of the public and weigh their opinions into consideration, shouldn't they? Yes, they certainly should. So what is the fundamental problem? They believe that we are too stupid to know what is good for us. Yes, there are obvious failures. Yes, there is obvious criminality and violence. Yes, there is obvious terrorism. Yes, there is obvious cultural erosion. But you unwashed rubes are just too stupid to see that ultimately this is a good thing. You need to sit back and let us do your thinking for you. We know better than you, and it's for your own good. Christian author C.S. Lewis had a word or two about that. Of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victim may be the most oppressive. It may be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral, or in this case, immoral, busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep. His cupidity may at some point be satiated. But those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own conscience. And believe me, these European Union leaders sleep like babies at night, watching the continent of Europe erode, watching Western civilization crumble from within, because it is by design. Boys and girls, that is, in a word, evil. Full stop. But don't get blackpilled, because there was another great American who once said, evil is powerless if the good are unafraid. Which way, Western man? Which way, Western man? If you'd asked that question in Europe 10 years ago, you would have heard a much different response. But Europe is now leading the way. The good in Europe are unafraid, and thus evil is powerless. The only question that remains is if America will have the courage, the spine, and the balls to follow suit. I have the highest of hopes. Nothing can stop an idea whose time has come. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors. And I cannot stress this enough because I really, really like this one. Certainly not employers. For you docs happy Antifa maggots out there, they have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They're coming from the heart. They're guided by the mind. They're guaranteed to stretch open that maw, even against your consent, and choke you with a big fat dose of unbridled, unleashed, and possibly uncircumcised truth cock. Back at you again, boys and girls, with a black latex glove and a fistful of truth. It is time once again for the Sunday sermon. Well, coming out of the starting gate a little awkward, but I think we're going to make it happen. Everybody stay with me. I'm going to take that roll call here in a minute right now and see who's in the house. Everybody in for the drum roll. Whew. Sometimes it takes us a while to get there, man, but we ultimately get there. My tenacity is undeterred. Tenacity and undeterred being two of my three college words. I'll get to the rest of them later in the program. We are all doomed. We are all doomed. This t-shirt, a gift from a fan. You know who you are, buddy, and I do appreciate you making the show today. We are all doomed. Not necessarily. No black belts running out here. Come and charge out of the starting gate as we always do with that bumper music from the one and only Red Desert Gut Stomping rock and roll band out of the smoldering embers and ruins of the once great American city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. The name of the band is Red Desert. The name of the track is Older No Wiser. Every week I get a little bit older. Every week you guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others. Judging from the fact that it took us 3 times to even get started this week, I don't know how this is going to turn out. You guys advise me over in the comments. Right now, we're going to get back over here and do that roll call. I want to thank everybody who got through the hiccups, who came back and checked on YouTube, who bounced over to Facebook to see which platforms were running and which ones weren't. Let me feed that bumper music down just a little bit, man, because I don't even know how that sound's coming through. Again, it's just me and a laptop, and I'm out here on the road, man, just a crane operator with some opinions, bringing you the weekly truth cock choking Brother Roman from Opium Tales. Hey, man, good to see you. And, of course, his lovely wife, Carrie, also on board. Dennis, this looks promising. Yeah, finally. Thanks for bouncing over to Facebook and checking me, man. And, by the way, Dennis, I got to thank you for something a little bit later in the program, too, man. You guys are going to enjoy that. Let's see who's on board. Brother Clem, back from war. Glad you made it, man. Sorry about the hiccups. I wish I would have had more time for the crane cab to have that discussion with you about how the European elections go. When we get into that, I'm going to be counting on your comments over here, man. I want you to dump every bit of knowledge that you have on what's going on because you have that uniquely European perspective and that accent that is oh so very sexy. Glad to have you here, Clem. I appreciate you, brother. Brother Ryan Jenkins, remember me telling you about this almost a year ago, Mark? Yes. Oddly enough, I do, Ryan. And I consider myself properly corrected and chastised. Thank you. Sunday live. Let's go. Right there with the Monster Truck Jam boys, man. Brother Stone in the house. I love it. Don't forget Biden's son sold off all our surplus to China. Brother, we're going to be covering all of that, man. We got room enough for all of it. Brother Bill Wade, man. Glad you made it back again. Apologies. This wasn't even a Wi-Fi part of the equation. This is a reboot part of the equation. Still learning my way, even after all this time. I'm still learning my way around StreamYard. Sometimes we get little hiccups. The original Sinner Sister herself, the divine Miss Emmy, 6-hour week starts, $6,2,700 gift card when you buy a SIG firearm or optic. That's an academy, right? I'm going to take into account that that is an academy. That's for all my Texas people. We don't know anything about that in the Great Pacific Northwest or my current location here in Nevada. But if you're out there, we're taking advantage of, man. Mr. Greg Davis, happy Father's Day to you, my friend. Exemplary father that you are. And for all of my fathers, Ryan included on here, for all of my guys who are out there who are fathers and doing their best to be exemplary fathers, because nothing is more important in the collapse of Western civilization and our attempts to hold it up than fathers being there and being present and being the leaders that they need to be, that God ordained us to be. So thank you all, and especially for you, Greg, man. Sorry for all the madness up in Portland right now, brother. I got to get up that way, man. I got to get over the Pass the Sea again. It's been too long. Deacon Mark in the house, bouncing back through all three of those little hiccups and different platforms, man. Yeah. Appreciate it, man. It's something. Took us a while to get here, man, but I'm glad y'all made it. Glad y'all made it. Yes, sir. Amen. Amen and amen. All right, so let's take a look at the image that I'm presenting here. First of all, we are all doomed, and then immediately over this shoulder we got Memento Mori. Remember, you will die. Seems kind of at odds with the whole no black pills thing, doesn't it? We're gonna let that bumper music run out. We're gonna jump off into this thing. But yeah, fantastic. What is this? Got about 6 months before I step down and go part time at Academy, focused on photography and to be a house crowd. Right on. Well, good on you, hon. God bless you in that effort, man. God bless you in that effort. Thank you for sharing that with us, hon. I appreciate that. The divine Miss Emmy, the OG Sinner Sister herself. I'm gonna go ahead and fade that bumper music out. Again, guys, the bumper music, Older No Wiser, by the band Red Desert out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And again, bro, they let me use this as bumper music. Haven't even hit me up on copyright or anything. So if you're out there and you're on those platforms, take some time, man. Pay them some money. Give them some of your money. Download a couple of tracks. Buy some of their merch. All that good stuff, man. Because help out the people who are helping out the program. Speaking of people who are helping out the program, let me get sponsor shout outs out of the way real quick. I'm feeling pretty emanated. Yeah, emanated. It's tough, man. It's been a rare week, and then of course the production headaches just got me a little tense. But I know, Clem. Breathe, Bart, breathe. And the tension comes out of the traps, and I relax my shoulders, and we're all good, and we go forward. Sponsor shout outs. First of all, Roman, one of my oldest and dearest friends, over at opiumtales.com. They are the erotic pinups and portraits people. That is Roman. That is his lovely wife, Carrie. Devout man and woman of faith, the both of them, devout people of faith, and very dear friends of mine. They are the erotic pinups and portraits people. They Roman is doing some outstanding watercolor work over there. And if you check him out at opiumtales.com, you can also check him out. Roman Riva online. He's back. His nom de plume. That's all the French I know, Clem. Sorry. And merde. That's really all I got. Sorry. But yeah, something like that. But indeed, man, you have beautiful creative watercolor work of beautiful naked women and testosterone-driven commentary on Planet Bart. We call that a trifecta, which is the third of my college words that I'm keeping in reserve. Maybe, possibly, haven't decided yet. But you can check out his book online as well. It is available on Kindle. It's available through Amazon. Roman Riva, From Dork to Pimp Daddy, talks about his journey, gives some good art instruction as well. He's working on another one that's entirely devoted to art instruction. But From Dork to Pimp Daddy basically quantifies his journey from dork to pimp daddy, from Joe working class schlub painting pretty pictures to a man who is sought out to be paid for the privilege of painting very beautiful, very naked women. Not a bad life if you can get it. And of course, our other sponsor shout out to my Viking brothers, Casey and Dusty Tellison, Nordic Smoke Barbecue. You can find them on all the social media platforms. Dusty's got some interesting little one off videos too. Dusty, of course, the pit master. Casey helping him out over there. Casey now has passed the bar and is a practicing attorney who I have on retainer, just so you know, uh, before you plan anything nefarious. There's another one of my three college words. But yes, and he's doing quite well for himself. You can check out his book on Amazon, Freaks of a Feather. It is a first person account of war, and it's a memoir that started out as a suicide note. It is a dark but deeply fascinating book by a skilled and very, very prolific author, and he's an amazing human being. So buy his book, buy Roman's book, and check out Dusty with The Long Ship, the big smoker trailer if you are out in the Spokane area. And Dennis, we've got to, I know, right? We got to get that coordinated. We got to get that coordinated. And I should, defined by Black's Law Dictionary, first edition, ought to, but not necessarily will, should be in Spokane about that time. So we will be able to make that happen. If for whatever reason I am not in Spokane, I am making arrangements with Dusty to have that Nordic Smoke Barbecue delivered right to your doorstep, wherever that hotel doorstep may be. So you will get to bask in the glory that is Nordic Smoke Barbecue. So thanks again, man. I appreciate you guys taking care of the people that take care of the program. We're talking about Roman. We're talking about Casey and Dusty. We're talking about the dudes from Red Desert. We're talking about, well, we're even talking about these guys. I consistently got to give them a shout out. Iron Infidel, this Battle Bottle, they're supporting the program without even knowing it, because this volume of liquid caffeine could only be contained by such a mighty vessel. One day we will be up and running enough to where I can get guys like this on as sponsors. In the meantime, between time, we just do what we do. And with that, we move on with the program. LOL. Plastic. Weeks, I tell you. That means he's fluent, right? I love the conversations going on over here in the chat, man. It's always just fantastic to look at you guys like talking amongst yourselves. So, you guys already know how we do. We are moving to our first and most popular segment, the one that we do every week, talking about Ryan's Rabbit Hole. Let's go ahead and give him that thunderous roar of applause. You guys can hear the, or am I just waving at nothing? Can you hear the applause? Thunderous roar of applause. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Yep. Heading for the rabbit hole. Yep. Thank you. Thank you so much. Man, I really hope that sound effect is coming through. Otherwise, I look very complete. Otherwise, I look presidential, shaking hands with invisible people and no sense of direction. That's presidential now. Go ahead and ponder that one for a minute. Anyway. One more round, guys. One more. All right, good. All right, thank you. Ryan's Rabbit Hole, guys. This segment started out as something we did when we were working the wind farm together in Nebraska when I first started on this crane journey. And Ryan, as you know, opened the door for that. We got together up in Nebraska, and several weeks into that project, we started doing these little rabbit holes. One of the things that Ryan and I bonded over early on is the fact that we were both repositories of useless information. We can go on and on and on about weird, obscure, esoteric stuff, hidden histories, historical figures that you might not have heard of, historical events that you might not be familiar with. In short, we're really hell to play a game of Trivial Pursuit with. You just don't want to do that. But the rabbit hole segment became popular because every week, Ryan would give me a little factoid or a little event or figure to kind of toss out there, just a little poke into your bread oven, take it off the beaten path. Sort of open your mind a little bit, just expose you to stuff you might not be aware of, kind of broaden your horizons a little bit. Sometimes it dovetails with what we're talking about in the sermon. Sometimes it does not. And either way, it's always a fascinating ride. And I appreciate Ryan for being the friend that he is and for sending us down this rabbit hole. This week, Ryan and I would like to thank OG Prophet of Doom and Reverend's Ranger Dennis Weimer for the suggestion, because we pondered it, and as it turns out, we have mentioned it on the program before, but we never actually did a rabbit hole on it, and you were spot on correct. So this is, yeah, I know, bro, I know. No, we're giving thank yous where thank yous are due. This is a big thank you very much for the suggestion on behalf of myself and Ryan. So this is going to be Instead of Ryan's rabbit hole this week, it's going to be Dennis's deep dive. How about that? and should we ever rise to the thing where this show becomes self-sustaining, maybe that'll be another segment, and Ryan can do the esoteric weird stuff, and Dennis can do the brainiac quantum physics and explorations into mineral energy stuff. I don't know, man. We'll figure it out. In any case, the rabbit hole this week is multi-tiered. The first search term that I want you to use is Peter Boghossian, and let me spell that last name so you know. It's Boghossian. Somebody put that over there in the comments so everybody will have a chance to look for it. Peter Boghossian and the Grievance Studies Affair. You guys know how to spell grievance and studies, but do you know how to spell Clavin? Wait a minute. Wait. Sorry. Daily Wire flashback. I kind of got confused. Anyway, Peter Boghossian and the Grievance Studies Affair. Now, this is the kind of exposition of left-wing idiocy and basically left-wing idiots fronting themselves out that could only have come from a place like Portland, Oregon, and Portland State University. Here's the thing, and this would be here's another search term for you: Poe's Law. Poe''S. Poe's Law. Because I think, and Dennis would probably agree with me here, and I believe Ryan will as well, that this is probably the ultimate real life example, in current history speaking, of Poe's Law in effect. Well, what is Poe's Law? Poe's Law basically deals with the fact that sometimes things get so absurd in real life that it becomes impossible to tell what is satire, making fun of the absurdity, and what parts of the absurdity are legitimately going on. I have what I call the Reverend Bart gravity check when in doubt, and you guys may be familiar with this. It's the Reverend Bart gravity check. When I see something, or I read a tweet, or I look at a news story, and it is just so absolutely ridiculous, so abjectly absurd that I can't believe it actually happened, right? I do one of three things. I either hit a Superman pose, right? Or I do this Jedi meditation thing. Or sometimes I just flap my arms, right? And what are you doing? It's the Reverend Bart gravity check. You see, the gravity check works like this. If I flap my arms and I leave the ground, that means I'm asleep and I'm dreaming. And that didn't actually happen. And this is just something silly, right? If I flap my arms and my feet stay planted, holy crap, that really just happened. As absurd, as monumentally stupid as that was, that really just happened. So hashtag gravity check, or hashtag Reverend Bart's gravity check. It works with all of the above, the Grievance Studies Affair and Peter Boghossian, and really all of Portland State University. Here's how it all came together. They were looking at the way that leftists have taken control of academia, right? Now, a lot of that is in the humanities, or previously had been. Now it is actually extended to the STEM fields, to where mathematics are colonialism, to where algebra is racist. Google any of these things. I'm not making this up. Go ahead and do the gravity check. You will not leave the ground. This is really happening. But they decided that they were going to show them. Peter Boghossian and a group of his associates decided that they were going to show just how absurd, just how absolutely absurd it had gotten. And so what they did was they started sending these essays that were allegedly peer-reviewed and supported by experts in the field and all this kind of stuff. And they started sending it to legitimate academic journals, right? Now, any thinking human being would have read this and went, this is dumb. This is just straight up dumb. And they would have rejected it, or they would have at least checked the sources, a number of which were fake, right? They would have at least checked the sources, but they didn't. Why? Because the things that they were writing about were completely in line with leftist orthodoxy. And as patently absurd as these things were, and the fact that all of their sources were fake, these academic journals didn't even look at them. They went ahead and published these. I'm going to give you some top examples. They sent in 20 of these papers, okay? Uh, Only 6 had been rejected, 7 were still under review. These are the articles that got published in these academic journals. Arguments that dogs engage in rape culture. Guys, please, I'm urging you, fact check me on this. It happened. It legitimately happened. Legitimate academic journals at legitimate institutions of higher learning publish this stuff. Dogs engage in rape culture, right? The aggression of dogs in dog parks, and that was the essence of that article, is that dogs in dog parks are basically perpetuating rape culture by acting, the way dogs do in dog parks, sniffing around and trying to find a toy box or a hole to put your pee-pee in. Yeah, dogs perpetuate rape culture. That got published, okay? They published another one that said that men could reduce their transphobia, and again, providing clinical evidence from fake sources that men could reduce their transphobia by anally penetrating themselves with sex toys. They put this out with entirely fake sources, and a legitimate academic journal published it without even fact-checking anything. On Facebook, they fact-check satire now, but these legit follow the experts, and remind me of that later, the follow the experts principle. They didn't question at all. It was in line with their ideology, so they just pushed it on through. And since it was coming from a legitimate academic journal, from a legitimate university, it took on the appearance of fact, and some news organizations actually picked up the stories and ran with them. This is the one that'll disturb you. They took an entire chapter of Funny Mustache Man, right? Adolf Hitler. They took an entire chapter of Mein Kampf, right? And instead of using the actual terms that Hitler used in that chapter of Mein Kampf, they basically rephrased it and used feminist buzzwords. A chapter of Mein Kampf, rewritten almost verbatim, just changing little rhetorical devices and buzzwords to make it in tune with feminist principles. The first of those got special recognition and won an award from the journal that published it. Grievance studies and applied postmodernism, I'll let you guys go down, because you guys go ahead and do the research. Peter Boghossian and the Grievance Studies Project. I don't want to, because I could easily spend an entire sermon ranting and raving about this entire thing. This happened. These were pranksters. They basically were showing these people, right, gay dog park behavior, that, they were showing these people for the idiots that they were. They let them expose themselves. A legit academic journal receiving something like that, even if it was in line with their thinking, would at least take the time to check the sources. So you're not plagiarizing, this guy's stealing somebody else's work, this guy's using legitimate resources. They did not even bother to check. This fits our ideology. This fits our narrative. We will publish it. This is the way all academic journals work these days. Oh, Bart, you can't say all. I just said all. And let's not forget that off the strength of these academic journals, media picked up those stories and ran with it, including the dog park rape culture thing. Trust the experts, they tell us. Experts don't only get it wrong, they intentionally mislead. And when you have something that gets dropped in their lap like that, it's a ready-made resource. We just rubber stamp it, boom, and we move it on down the line, and we push this out to the masses, who, of course, are supposed to what? Trust the experts. Now, guys, I'll give you one guess who caught flack when it was all said and done, and they exposed this, and they said, hey, this has all been a huge prank, and you guys fell for it. Guess who the media lit into? Guess who the university lit into? Not the academic journals. not the sociology departments, not the women's studies departments that failed to do basic fact checking and basic reference checking. Oh, no, no. Boghossian and his crew caught the full wrath of God for what they had done. And when I say wrath of God, I say that in the truest sense, because what they had committed, was heresy. What they had done was heresy. They had established that the new priesthood were liars. Trust the experts. The emperor wears no clothes. The emperor is naked. Not only is the emperor without clothes, the emperor is without clothes, penetrating himself with sex toys to eliminate his transphobia while frolicking around with rape-cultured dogs at a dog park. That's where the emperor is. Trust the experts. You should laugh at this. And the further you go down this rabbit hole, the more you actually are going to laugh at this, because it is that patently absurd. But once you've stopped laughing and your sides are splitting, you should probably take a look at it and be at least a little bit terrified, because these are the kingmakers now. These are the experts. Every time you hear the word trust the experts, these are the experts, right? And I don't want to undermine it by putting, but there's a really good series of podcasts out there that the Blaze is working on right now, with regard to how many times the experts have gotten it wrong over the years. And you know what? I patently disagree with some of it. Full disclosure, I'm a devout eugenicist. I've never made any secret of that. Okay, but the people who are behind Planned Parenthood, the people who are behind the trans movement, the people who are pushing gender transition onto kids, right? You should take a look at where the roots of these movements come from, because we are being told to trust the experts, and the experts are retooling the work of legitimate ghouls. Ghouls. It's brutality. It's sick. It was good of Peter Boghossian and his crew to do what he did, because it exposed at least the people that have the scales off their eyes and two brain cells to rub together. It exposed them. It exposed them. And you have heard me say this before, and I stand by it. The best way to topple any authoritarian regime, the best way to topple someone who is too full of themselves, even me, if I get my considerably sized head up my considerably sized ass, the easiest way to take me down off that pedestal that I put myself upon, ridicule. Ridicule. Ridicule will get you further. Getting back to the Orwell quote about public opinion and swaying the opinion of the masses, ridicule of these people is going to get you a hell of a lot further than hostility. Should you have feelings of hostility towards these people for what they are trying to push on you and your children? Absolutely. But your hostility is not going to sway opinions. Ridicule will. That is the whole strength of the Emperor's New Clothes fable. The whole strength of that. All it took. Everybody was afraid. I don't want to say anything. If I say anything, I'm going to look bad. It's going to put me in the wrong eyes as far as the masses are concerned. People are going to think I'm a heretic. It took one kid, a 6-year-old kid, to come out and say what any 6-year-old kid would have said. You're naked. And once they saw that one kid had the courage, the kid didn't have the courage. That's just what kids do. Had that innocence about him. He said it because he hadn't been indoctrinated into knowing better than to say it. He wasn't old enough yet to know that you just don't say those things. So he did what any 6-year-old kid. When I say, and even when the scripture says, have that mind like a child, there's your example right there. Speak out against evil because nobody's told you that you can't do that. Walk right up to people in power and let them know, you're not the boss of me. We all need to get back to that. And I think a hell of a lot of ridicule, especially when it's out there to be ridiculed, especially when it's legitimately play. we're clipping again, when it's legitimately Poe's law on display, it's not only our right to ridicule it, it is our civic duty to ridicule it. I call it out. So get busy calling it out. I hope that rabbit hole will stimulate you to that end. Peter Boghossian and the Grievance Studies Affair. The Grievance Studies Affair. Peter Boghossian, Portland State University. Guys, the deeper you go down that, and some other people have done good programs on it. John Stossel in particular did about a 30-minute video podcast on Boghossian and everything. And he interviewed Boghossian and the other people who were doing the stuff. He interviewed the people who were taken in by it. Stossel's a pretty sharp cat. I don't agree with him about everything, but I've been a fan of Stossel's work ever since my misspent youth in the Reagan era. There used to be a television news show called 2020, right? And granted, it was on ABC, and granted, being a product of mainstream media, particularly the three oldest of legacy networks. Back when I was a kid, we only had three. We had ABC, CBS, NBC. That was it. ABC had a television news program called 2020, and Stossel was always the guy who was out there going, hey, these guys are lying to you. Hey, these guys are taking advantage of you. Hey, these guys are presenting one thing, they're doing another thing. And like so many others, Stossel had to go his own way. Stossel could not find a job in legacy media now. No way. In the same way that Matt Taibbi, who was lauded, couldn't find a job in mainstream legacy media right now. Glenn Greenwald, who broke the Edward Snowden story, could not get hired in legacy media right now, right? Because they legitimately are a propaganda machine. That's all that they do. I'm getting a little sidetracked here, but I want to roll with this. Since I'm kind of on that tear. The Washington Post is owned by who? Amazon boy. That's who owns the Washington Post. Okay. Twitter is owned by who? St. Elon, right? How much flack has Elon Musk caught over Twitter? Tons, right? Ha ha, he lost $3 million on this, and he lost $7 million over here. Ha ha, and he's a tyrant. Billionaires shouldn't have that much control of the media. That's what the legacy media are telling you. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. Do you want to know, does anybody know how much money the Washington Post lost just last year? Anybody want to take a guess? Phil, I'm glad you made it. Sharp Red Sea pedestrians for straight white male. Yeah, pretty much. That is exactly what they did, Mike. How much money did the Washington Post lose last year? Anybody want to take a guess? Just last year? $77 million. That's how much money the Washington Post lost last year. Do you think a man like Jeff Bezos misses $77 million? Of course not. He's the second, and I emphasize, second richest guy on the planet. Doesn't care. 77 billion. He can continue to hemorrhage that kind of money and throw money at it because the money doesn't mean anything. The narrative is what is supposed to get it out there. And he's got billions of dollars to throw. Elon, in my observation, has a very similar principle. He legitimately does not care if Twitter loses money. He can continue to hemorrhage money. Do you remember what he said at that conference specifically to Bob Iger over at Disney? What did he say? Oh, you're going to hold me hostage? You're going to hold me hostage by not taking out ads? Don't take out ads. The magic 3 words, go yourself. And he held up the double barrel, not family friendly. Go yourself. Was that clear enough? So what we have there are two people who are independently wealthy enough that the narrative is of more consequence than the money. It's no longer a commercial enterprise for them. Dovetailing that, what's that? Houston Post went under for far. Oh, yeah. Noah, you're showing your age, buddy. Brother Noah showing his age there a little bit, knowing about the Houston Post. How many people remember that? It should be a commercial enterprise. Hollywood should be a commercial enterprise. It's one thing when the Washington Post loses $77 million over the course of a year and doesn't lay off any journalists. It's something else entirely when Hollywood and the studio system in every single studio loses millions of dollars consistently, film after film, year after year. And the shareholders somehow don't go, dude, you need to knock this woke stuff off and put out films that people actually want to see. You need to knock it off because we're hemorrhaging money here. But they don't. That is the thing that is most baffling about Hollywood, because Hollywood, first and foremost, is a commercial endeavor. You think about the ethnicity that runs Hollywood, money, pretty freaking important. I said what I said. So, why haven't they corrected themselves? Why haven't they? And how do they continue? Where is the money coming from that they continue to hemorrhage? Because it isn't about money. In the same way that the Washington Post pushes their horrible, woke, left-wing narratives because they don't worry about how much money they're losing. It's more important to get the narrative out there. Hollywood, that money is coming from somewhere. And for whatever reason, the social erosion of the West that they are able to create with that narrative is more important to them than turning a profit. And again, considering the ethnicity involved, that should tell you something. Because those are the two factors that they are known for. Naked greed and unraveling civilizations. Again, I said what I said. How many countries, Ryan? 108? Give it a minute, it'll be 109. I said what I said. The two things that they are known for is greed, money, and unraveling civilizations, particularly the West. They are the ones behind the flood of, ethno-state for me, but not for thee. Subject for another day, but I wanted to get into that, about the importance of the message. So, by their works ye shall know them. Doesn't even the scriptures say that, right? By their works ye shall know them. Okay. I look at Hollywood. I look at that group of people. What are their works? Promoting degeneracy, promoting perversion, promoting depravity, promoting the downfall of the West. That is their active work. And they don't care how much money they lose in the process, because the end goal is going to get all that money back and then some. That's how they're seeing it. Jeff Bezos, Washington Post, very similar situation. Not saying that he is even tangentially tied to that ethnicity. Best of my knowledge, Bezos is a Gentile. What the hell do I know? He can hemorrhage that kind of money because unraveling the West is more important to him. These people have quite literally sold their souls. The sooner you recognize that, the better you are, better off you're going to be. Hyperbolic, tinfoil hat, yada, yada, yada. Okay, fine. Tune out. Change the channel. I don't care. I'm going to continue to spit the truth as I see it with every last breath that I take. I cut my birth mother loose on purpose for any number of reasons, but particularly for the judgment and the derision that I got for speaking the truth. If you think I am not committed to this, guess again. Get your head around what's really going on. By their works ye shall know them. Let's take St. Elon on the other hand. And while I'm here, let me just go ahead and say, if it does eventually come out that Elon Musk is the Antichrist, and mind you, You could make a case for that. You could. If you look at it objectively, independent of fanboyness and everything else, you could legitimately make the case that Elon Musk is the Antichrist. No one is going to be more embarrassed than myself. And once that case is presented, assuming I haven't already been beheaded, I will publicly confess. But in the meantime, by their works ye shall know them. He put together that 46 billion or whatever it was to buy it out and take Twitter private. He did that. Roman, if you wish to offer any commentary on that, now's the time. He put his money behind it. He doesn't care about the advertising. He will continue to hemorrhage money because of what he is pushing. And what is he pushing? Is he advocating? No, he's got his personal opinions, and they do appear, but he's basically just opening a platform to say what you want. We are going to engage in a marketplace of ideas, a free and open marketplace of ideas. We're not going to shut anybody down. Are we going to advocate for some over others? Yeah, because that's how it works, right? Jake, glad you made it out, brother. He is advocating for the principles of the West. He is advocating for freedom of speech, for freedom of expression. He is advocating for the cultural and, as much as is possible for a man who has not declared himself a man of faith, the cultural and spiritual anchors of Western civilization. He is making it possible for that to be. I want you to try to imagine, in light of how the propaganda machine has kicked up since 2020, and we've all watched it. They get more and more desperate. Their lies get more and more egregious. And they get less and less concerned about hiding what they really would do. Their hostility towards us, their will to shut us down, the fact that we need to shut up, stay in our lanes, go back to shopping at Walmart, stay off of political speech, the fact that they want us gulagged if we refuse a jab. They've been less and less subtle about that. Do you guys remember Twitter before Elon bought it? A lot of you do. You remember the censorship. And as it turns out, that censorship was not only legitimate, but they were doing it at the behest of the United States government. As is MSNBC, as is NPR, as is every legacy media organization now, including Fox. Sorry, Republicans, including Fox. They are all elements of that propaganda regime. If it were not for Twitter, and I got to give a shout out to Bongino over at Rumble, a lot of this information we would never know. Look at all the things that have come out just since 2020. The Hunter Biden laptop thing, that they legitimately suspended the account of the New York Post to try to suppress. All of the vaccine stuff that was conspiracy theory. They got people kicked off of X and kicked off of Twitter. You still can't talk about it on MSNBC. Actually, you could. They just won't. The fact that Elon has Twitter, the fact that Elon has X. Imagine. What was the nut job before who was running Twitter? Imagine when him and Vagina, or whatever her name was, when they were still in charge of the show over at Twitter. Imagine if they were still running it now. They would continue to be one of the most powerful voices on social media. They would continue to be legit, a direct minister of propaganda for the regime. Thank God for Elon Musk. By their works ye shall know them. Jeff Bezos has plenty of money to hemorrhage $77 million a year pushing woke nonsense. Hollywood getting their money from somewhere, hemorrhaging money, film after film, year after year, continue to push the woke nonsense in spite of the fact that it's costing them. It's costing Elon too. Believe it. He's got enough money, he doesn't have to worry about it. And what is he putting forward? What's he putting forward? And there's a couple of you out there, the Jake Shields crowd out there that are like, yeah, but he's too cozy with Israel. Okay, great. I concede. He is a little too cozy with Israel for my personal liking. Can we afford that level of moral puritanism right now? By his works he shall know him. Worth thinking about. Something I didn't plan on getting into. I got banned for being right about COVID with the previous Twitter. That's right. That's right. Star Wars act like no one watches it, losing 200 million, and they don't care. They'll continue to put it out, right? Because the narrative. It's the narrative. That's what's more important. Yeah, good to see you too, sweetie. Rub your nipple. Anyway, no, please don't do that. Don't do that. Let me get it. A little more caffeine. That'll fix it. So pay attention. Pay attention to what people do when they don't have to. It's real easy to be virtuous. Real easy to be virtuous when you're at the point of a gun. Thing about personal charity, but that's another sidebar since I'm on this rant. Thing about personal charity versus telling the government to tax people more to pay for these things. If you were that committed to a policy, an idea, a prospect, whatever the hell it is, why aren't you putting your money on it? Virtuous is saying, I'm going to spend $1,000 of my own money buying secondhand coats and delivering them to the homeless downtown. That's virtuous. There's nothing virtuous about clicking on Facebook that you need to be a good person and let the government tax more of your income to take care of these things. There's nothing virtuous about that. For as much as they may like to thump their chests about it. You want to talk about it, you want to be about it. These people who claim to be the resistance. I am the resistance. Particularly on the left, man. Let me tell you a little something, a little bit of Reverend Bart history here. And some of y'all already know this. After I left the stiff arm salute crowd, I was still young and I was still spun and I was still searching, and I took a hard left. For years, I took a hard left. There are pictures in my FBI file of me and Travis Morales. You guys familiar with Travis Morales? Latino militant, La Resistencia, dude that incited the Moody Park riots, or as he liked to refer to it, the Moody Park Uprising or Moody Park Rebellion. That's how far left I went. I was Antifa before Antifa was Antifa. Back then we called it Black Bloc. We masked up. And when I said we were resisting the tyranny, what I knew at the time, George Bush Sr., that guy's a tyrant. That's what I thought at the time. But I felt it in my heart, and I put my ass where my rhetoric was. Outside the Republican convention in 92, Houston, Texas, damn near got run down by horses. Got jammed up against a chain link fence by a literal horse's ass, an HPD horse. Jammed up against a chain link fence. Damn near passed out, thought I wasn't going to be able to breathe. Got my head split with police riot batons. That's resistance, okay? Putting on your little maggot mask and beating up old people for wearing MAGA hats, that's not resistance. Sitting behind your keyboard talking about how much you resist and hate Donald Trump and pushing back. If you're going to be about it, be about it. Even if it's something wrong. And as I aged and as I came to realize that the same chicken hawk mentality that had existed with this crowd existed with the left crowd, I realized I'd just gotten played again. I evolved. This is what it is to be able to grow when you admit that you're wrong. But that's not the point that I'm making here. The point is, I have more respect for you if you're actually out there acting than all you guys that just talk, that just tweet, that just post. We are the resistance. Where am I now politically? You know where I'm at politically. And I'm going to say this. I encouraged the actions of groups like Patriot Prayer. Greg, if you're still listening, you saw what happened in Portland. The knockdown dragouts between Patriot Prayer and the Antifa maggot mob. You saw what happened up there. Bet your ass you will see me on the front lines going into this. Going into this next phase, bet your ass you're going to see me right back on the front lines. I marched when I was this kid in North Carolina. A fellow by the name of Frazier Glenn Miller. We just knew him as Papa Glenn, Uncle Glenn. You never heard of him. Just like you probably never heard of the North Carolina White Patriot Party. You never heard of him. Until he shot up a Jewish community center a couple of years ago, and then the news put him out as Frazier Glenn Miller because he'd been in witness protection. You want to talk about how intricate it is? There are plenty of people that can make a case that it was Glenn Miller that actually got David Lane, that they hung a snitch jacket on Glenn Miller. This is my opinion, was that they hung a snitch jacket on him. But there are plenty of people out there that believe that Glenn snitched on David Lane. And the order. A lot of stuff, a lot of rabbit holes for you to go down. The point is, I've grown past all of that. But every step of the way, if I put my heart behind something, I put my ass behind something. When my heart was behind this, I put my ass behind it. When my heart was with Black Bloc and La Resistencia, and yes, even the Revolutionary Communist Party. When I say I went left, son. I put my ass behind that too. And my ass has been out of the fight for far too long. And the importance of the fight. I'm out here preaching the gospel, but it finally became a point of conviction for me. It's like, hey man, why, you live close enough to Portland when I'm not out here running cranes. You live close enough to Portland. It's a 6-hour drive, bro. Why aren't you there with Patriot Prayer? And that hit me. So bet your ass you'll be seeing a lot more of that going forward. Because I cannot be a rhetorical device and say, we got a fight coming. I can't be a rhetorical device and say, this is the most important fight of our lives as a nation and not have my ass behind my rhetoric. And I didn't plan on talking about any of that. By the way, the last 15, 20 minutes, totally spontaneous. One thing leading to another, that's just my mental process. He was mentioned in Noah's book? Yep. Who was mentioned in Noah's book? Miller or who? Stone. Just whenever you get a second. Yeah. Well, to be entirely fair, Jake, it was more like the hind quarter. It's not like the ass. It's not like I was looking into the brown eye. You know what I mean? But it just jammed up, dude. Jammed up. I got tear gassed. I got my head split. And that wasn't the only time. Went head up with cops, man. Y'all think you know me? Y'all think you know me? You don't know me. You think you think that what you see in front of you right now is the sum total of who Bart Lane Stewart is? You think what you see in front of you right now is the sum total of what defines Reverend Bart? Guess again, Sparky. Some of you out there have been around long enough to know. A couple of you on here today have been around long enough to know. Right? Yeah, it wasn't too funny at the time, Jake. Point being, it's getting for real now, people. It's long past time that it's been for real. Right? Everybody wants to be a gangster until it's time to do gangster shit. Yeah, it's true, bro. It's true. I absolutely believe that. Whew, here I am preaching positivity, and I got "We Are All Doomed" and "Remember You Will Die" on my shoulder. Anyway. Yeah, of all the ironies I was left. Yeah, Roman's here. Roman knows. Roman knows. He'd been around for a minute. He was there. We were both super left of center. And I'll give you a little more, Roman, if you don't mind me telling tales out of school, right? Roman's family were atheists. I was brought up in the church, and his family was really the first family that I'd ever been exposed to who were atheists. They made knowing them, I'm not saying they didn't lead me away from the faith, but being exposed to that made me more comfortable with re-examining things. And now here we are both back to the right, conservative, leaning, and back to the faith. This is what it is to evolve. This is life. This is the process of life. One of the reasons, right? Dude, I was there. I remember sitting at the dinner table with you, bro. One of the reasons I love that quote so much from Aldous Huxley, the course of every intellectual, if he stays on that path long and unflinchingly enough, arrives at the obvious from which the non-intellectual has never stirred. Back in my misspent youth, right? Just old mill boy working furniture factory up yonder in Holler, North Carolina. I was steeped in the scriptures, washed in the blood and the spirit, and a hardcore Reagan Republican. And then things happened. And I went on that journey. First departure on that journey was pretty abrupt, and I'll give you that story another day. But I went that arc, and I opened my mind up, and there's all these new things, and you get in a city like Houston, 4 million people, and all these new ideologies, and all these new cultures, and all these things to process, and all these, knowledge bases that you're being exposed to for the first time. And my mind was just blown. It was blown wide the hell open to know just how big of a world I was living in. And I went sideways, brother. And I stayed sideways for a long, long time. Don't regret a single minute of it. Don't regret a single minute of it. Good, bad, or ugly, because it made me who I am. It was the course of my journey, just as your life should be the course of your journey, and you should be unafraid of getting out there on that journey. You're going to make some mistakes, some big ones, but eventually you're going to come back around. But getting back to the Huxley quote, I went out on that journey, but I stayed long and unflinching in searching for truth, and searching for truth, and searching for truth. One truth in particular been banging on my door for 5-10 years, but I put it out of my head because no, I've grown past that. And eventually the carpenter said, hey, I'm trying to get your attention. And I came back around to what? The obvious. The truth, the light. Whether we are talking about conservative politically, whether we are talking about the social structure of Western civilization, whether we're talking about the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Those were the things that were obvious. That was the position from which the non-intellectual, old furniture factory hillbilly Bart had never stirred. Thank God I came back around. Thank God, literally thank God that I came back around. Because there's one of two ways that could have gone, and both of them are bad. One is I'd have never left up yonder in the holler, and I'd be just a bone ignorant bag of rags, living in a double wide trailer, my Ford F-150, my chrome plated bow covers, big old fat wife I ain't touched in 20 years. That could have been my fate. Wouldn't be too happy about that. But the other example is I could have gone so far the other direction that I wound up dying in blindness thinking I had sight. Y'all feel me? You tracking? I stayed at it unflinching. I've arrived where I'm at. Y'all are you and say, David, I'm glad you made it out, brother. Glad you made it out. Well, you know what? I'm not even going to touch that, dude. I'm just not. Yep. Downtown the warehouse district somewhere, I'm guessing. You are correct, my friend. You're correct. Chrome plated valve covers. Dude, you did that too well. Jake, that's how I lived it, bro. That's how I lived it. That's been the course of my life. I didn't mean to get off on this rant, man, but again, it's that thought process I've got here, bro. It's just wanting to pour out. I've got so much I want to share. And I'm passionate about it. The importance of what's going on. The vibe, what we are on the crest of. And a lot of people can't even see it. Whether it's confirmation bias or whether it's denial or whether it's normalcy bias or whether it's cognitive dissonance or whether it's they can't take their eyes off their phone or their head's buried in pornography, whatever it is. I can't see it. But I'm seeing it, man. Like Saul of Tarsus, pull the scales from my eyes and let me see. And I have had my road to Damascus moment. And now my aim is to be a prolific apostle. I pray that God helps me to that end, and that's part of what I'm doing right here. So God, thank you for that blessing. And for those of you who are listening, sorry for getting a little sidetracked. It happens. What big block or small block? Well, you know, we could play that game, Bill. We could play that game, but then if I go big block or small block, then I got to say, well, it depends on what I'm running. Am I running Chevy or Ford? And then you come back with neither one, you meathead. You better speak Mopar around here. You need to be running a Dodge. And then I got to say, well, am I running a 318 in that Ram Charger? I'm running a 360, you know, because I've owned a Ram Charger with one or the other. And am I looking for the horsepower of the 360 or the durability of the 318? And next thing you know, we got an hour that just got behind us, bro. So, right? See, this is how those conversations roll, bro. This is how those conversations roll. But I like that. It gives it the authenticity, man. It's one of the reasons why I keep the camera where I keep it. It's one of the reasons why it's just me and my laptop. And we're going like buck wild on the production because I want this authenticity, man. This is just us. It's just us, man. Sitting around the table with coffee and can't smoke in my motel room, but communicating. This is how people come to understanding, and this is how authoritarian empires fall. One conversation at a time. One conversation at a time. What did Washington say? Truth will ultimately prevail where there is pains taken to bring it to light. We are taking those pains to bring it to light. And I'm going to tell you something. There are massive pains being undertaken on the other side. I don't need to tell you this. You can see it. To bury the truth, to demoralize and dehumanize. You have to see it. You feel that, man. Every one of you is aware of it. But you've heard me say it before, and I stand by it. Fundamentally, people are suckers for the truth, and we are seeing that. And with that, let me jump back on to the bullet points because we've still got stuff we need to cover, and I have been ranting and running off at the mouth. Epstein and J. Edgar Hoover. I'm going to touch on that one really, really quickly, right? That was a bullet point that I wanted to touch on because what do we know about Jeffrey Epstein? I mean, besides what he didn't do. What can we make a reasonably good case for about Jeffrey Epstein? That he was an intelligence operative. That all of this blackmail material was being gathered as part of an intelligence gathering operation. Intelligence gathering operation for who? For the let me answer that question. What? What? Jeffrey what? He's working for the Mossad. Israel treats America like a client state, and what better way to have America never think about breaking those Hebrew shackles than knowing that every single one of the people at the top are compromised, grabbing itty bitty titty, diddling kids. You got them all compromised. Why do you think they fear this new breed that are coming up? Why? And you can disagree with me all this because you're entitled to be wrong. But Why are they so afraid of people like Marjorie Taylor Greene? Why are they so afraid of people like Donald Trump? Yeah, well, Donald Trump, man, he was connected to Epstein. And, yeah, he kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago for what? For making advances on the teenage girl. Trump booted him out. If Trump were on those flight logs, do you not think we would have known it by now? Do you not think it would have been beaten into our heads 24/7? Because they do have the records and they do know. Every person, Diddy, you hear me? Every person that no longer is useful to these people who was recorded suddenly gets disposed of. Why do you think De Niro is being so vocal and so clear right now? When he was appearing on an award show going, it's fuck Donald Trump, fuck Donald Trump. Now all of a sudden he's got a case as if he were reading off of cue cards, as if he had been coached, and as if his very continued financial livelihood depended on him being on the front line. He'd take his stabs here and there, but all of a sudden he's on all the talk shows. Why? Why? Come on, Robert De Niro. We all know why. How does this tie into J. Edgar Hoover? Okay. Back when the left used to recognize that authoritarian governments and surveillance against your political enemies was a bad thing, back when they used to recognize that, it's a fellow by the name of J. Edgar Hoover. And J. Edgar Hoover exemplifies both sides of this argument perfectly. Number one, he kept records on everybody. He had everything on everybody, and he could leverage those people into doing the political will of one party or another. Either you step in line and get behind this bill, or see these little pictures where you thought nobody was watching? Those might happen to go public. And he used that power. But he was also on the receiving end of that power. Why? Because he was a cross-dresser. He was a cross-dresser and a homosexual. There's levels to this, y'all. There's levels. We got to start thinking outside the box. There's levels to this. He has all the papers and all the pictures and all the recordings, and he can flex on you to make you do what this other person needs you to do. But he has also compromised himself, which is why they didn't take a hard enough stand against organized crime. Because the mob had access to those pictures. You understand how there's levels to this. There's levels to Epstein as well. And now that the FBI has become totally weaponized, who was it that raided Epstein's home and seized control of all his hard drives and all his tapes and all his video and all his computers and all of his written records and all of these things? Do you think Ghislaine Maxwell didn't know about all this stuff? They've seized it. They have it. Once upon a time, old J. Edgar would have loved to have had access to that kind of power, that kind of blackmail material. J. Edgar would have put on his finest silk dress and spiked heeled shoes, and him and his little boyfriend would have had themselves a party to get such a treasure trove of blackmail material. Who were Hoover's political enemies? For all his faults, and they were many, the one thing he remained committed to were certain elements of the United States, certain elements of Western civilization. Look at all the things that are trying to tear down the West right now. Hoover did not trust certain tiny hat ethnicities. Hoover did not trust communists. Hoover pointed out communist infiltration. Hoover pointed out the anti-war movement that sought to undermine the military readiness of the United States, make us more vulnerable to communist influence from the outside militarily. Sure, he was a drag queen. Sure, he was homosexual. Sure, he had bad taste in stiletto heels. I don't know. There are bad things about the man, but at the very least, you could say one thing about this: the very concept of what he thought of as America checks and balances, liberty, the model of the West, in spite of his own non-Christian flaws with the cross-dressing and homosexuality, the God-fearing elements of the United States, he believed in that. He was vulnerable. He was vulnerable because of his little depravities. He was vulnerable. So there was only so far that he could go. Christopher Wray at the FBI now, with all of those records. You know, the FBI had the Hunter laptop for 2 years before we ever found out about it. Continued to deny the 51 intelligence agencies. This isn't a matter of tinfoil hat anymore. This is all right out there in your face. It's a 9-second Google search away. Stop being morons. I'm not even going to engage. Yo, Bart, that's a whole bunch of get thee behind me, Satan. I don't have time for you anymore. Mom, buzz off with that shit. DC, I don't have the patience. You choose to remain blind, be blind. Over there. What I'm getting to is this. Nothing stands in the way of the FBI now. The only thing that could possibly hamstring Christopher Wray and a weaponized FBI and a weaponized DOJ under the control of Merrick Garland is if they were on the list. Some of them very well might be. So there's the tie. Again, you have the results of one of the largest and most depraved intelligence gathering operations on the planet. And guys, the FBI and the CIA under MK Ultra, Operation Artichoke, and that kind of stuff, they did some pretty depraved stuff. They really did. Whole lot of, running brothels where hookers would dose Johns with LSD and then they'd record the festivities from behind two-way mirrors, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's okay. CIA, great, big deal. We're talking about dudes diddling kids. We're talking about them trafficking in those children to be diddled, or at the very least, taking advantage of what they already knew about the sick child sex trafficking that is going on and exposing these world leaders. We're talking princes. We're talking billionaires. We're talking world leaders. Of all the things that, and this begs a very simple question. I'm just going to dip my toe into this pond. We're going to jump right back out. Why would they be going through all this shit? That convoluted lawfare that finally got them that BS felony conviction up in New York for Trump paying off Stormy Daniels. Do you think they would even bother with something like that if they could pull something out of the Epstein file? Occam's razor, bitch. Sit down. He's not in there. And therefore they got no power over the man, and that terrifies them. A lot of the real up-and-coming God-fearing conservatives are coming up right now. Principled people who don't diddle kids, who don't run around naked in the woods outside of Bohemian Grove, doing mock sacrifices at the foot of a Moloch statue. There's nothing compromising these people. And that terrifies them. On a larger scale, certain Mr. Musk, for the first time in the history of the world, the richest man on the planet is not one of them. That's terrifying. They're getting more and more desperate. You don't think they put a bullet in Trump? You don't think they put a bullet in Elon Musk if they haven't got anything else to work with? Guess again. A weaponized FBI, as evidenced by the J. Edgar Hoover era, and all the things we don't. Keep in mind the stuff they did to MLK. They sent him pictures. They sent him pictures. They taken surreptitiously of him banging white hookers. Pictures of white women that he had beaten up. They sent him all this evidence. They sent him audio tape recordings and a tape player. And they said, listen to all this. We have all this on you. The only way out is for you to kill yourself. That's what a weaponized FBI did then. The left, quite properly, called them out on it as a misuse of power. But now that they're the ones at the helm, they don't care anymore. These people are not principled. They never have been. They've always been bitter. They've always been without principle. They've always been just loathsome, hateful, bitter unhinged, evil little maggots. But in 2016, the whole game changed. And in 2020, it changed again. And in 2024, it's getting ready to change again. So I'll need to ponder that. Look at how bad things got with political manipulation at the hands of a runaway Justice Department under J. Edgar Hoover. And then I want you to ponder how exponentially worse it can get going into the home stretch with a weaponized FBI that has the full catalog of the Jeffrey Epstein operation. Every picture, every world leader that diddled a kid, every scientific or financial figure that diddled a kid. Epstein was doing it on behalf of Mossad, in my opinion. But the FBI's got his records now. The fact that they haven't turned loose everything on everybody, considering the width of this thing and the depravity of this thing. All it would take, just release it. Release it publicly. Oh, you've got his black book? Release that publicly. Oh, you've got the tapes? Release those publicly. And let us make our own decisions. They're not doing that. It's weaponized now. So going forward, what they realize is that the same people that they would leverage against it are the ones who are supporting them. The only leverage they have now is support harder, Mr. De Niro. Get out there and put your ass on the line for us. Or we'll go public with this. When people are walking in the light and when people are walking on a higher path, they are not susceptible to this kind of thing. I've got the total opposite tack with regard to me. First of all, I'm nobody. I'm a crane operator with some opinions, with a little BS, Facebook Live that I do once a week. It's basically my therapy. But the one thing I won't do is BS you. There's nothing they can hold over my head that I haven't already admitted. What are you gonna tell? Oh, to discredit me? Discredit me. What are you gonna say? What are you gonna say? You gonna talk about my sexual depravity? Good luck. Stuff of legend. Anybody already knows that. You gonna talk about the fact that I used to be on the other side politically? Everybody knows that. You gonna talk about I have run with extremist organizations on the left and the right. You're gonna talk about I've got roots in the stiff arm salute crowd, and I've got roots with the Revolutionary Communist Party and all these other people on the left at different phases of my life. You're gonna go public with that? Anybody already knows that. So this is advice for you, my listeners, my friends, my people, everybody sitting around the table here having coffee and a cigarette. If you got some skeletons in your closet, time to get them out. Time to get them out. And if you're not walking in the light, you better be walking in the light, because nothing else is going to save your ass. Guys out there with no social media, and you guys have heard me talking. Yeah, Aaron Ton, I'm talking to you, you maggot, if you're listening. I don't have any social media presence, bro. I'm hiding in the shadows. You're not hiding in the shadows. You're running from the fight, coward. And if you won't accept truths when they are presented to you as irrefutable truths, you're a coward. Damn you for a coward. If you continue to do intellectual gymnastics to call evil good and good evil, damn you for a coward. What's done in the dark will be brought to the light. Say it again. Can I get an amen out there? What is done in the darkness will be brought to the light. And when the darkness has a hand on truths that you would rather not reveal to the world, they got control over you, son. They got hooks in your flesh. You talk about some Cenobite Hellraiser stuff. They got hooks through your flesh. Dance, puppet, dance. Don't be that guy. Air it out. I would sooner every one of y'all know every sick, depraved facet of the things that I have done and take the risk of you either loving me or hating me on what I really am than give the deceiver and his minions or any political power that sought to destroy me the power to hold something over my head. You do this or we will say that. Well, I'll tell you what, Sparky, wait right there. I'm going to tell him myself. You come up with something, let me know. Because I promise you, if I missed anything, it was an oversight on my part and not deliberate deception. And I wanted to paint a picture of a scenario right there, and it's boiling up in my head. If you can do better than, and I'm like, nah, you know what? No need to get that graphic. But if you can do better than doing a rail of coke off the erect penis of a tranny hooker, knock yourself out, brother. I dare you. I dare you. Please go and find something. Please go and find something that's gonna put these people off. Ha! That's a good observation, Dennis. I thought of it like that. That's the Eminem 8 Mile strategy. If I tell these people something they don't know about me, right? I would rather you know and make your judgments on me based accordingly. But the added benefit for me is selfish. I admit it. It is selfish because that gives them less to hold over my head. And I can walk in truth unencumbered by the fact of what they may expose to the world. Why would I not want it exposed to the world? Because Boss Man already knows. Boss Man already knows. And I made my peace with the carpenter. Carpenter paid for that. So you want to bring something on in this world? Bring it on, Sparky. Flesh and blood. Bring it on. I fight not with flesh and blood, but with principalities and evils in high places. Give me all you got. Give me all you got. See any concern in this eye? How about this one? Whew, damn, I'm on fire today, son. Whew. Who we got? Who we got? Still everybody here? All right. I'm glad. Man, we lost everybody. Yeah. Just real quick, when I was doing show prep, Epstein evidence withheld. One search term. Epstein docs third batch include allegations sex trafficker trolled nightclubs for underage girls. That's why Trump kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. But yeah, you just go on thinking that Dark Cheeto's on that list and we wouldn't already known about it. Y'all go right ahead. Redacted name raises questions. Request for Bill Clinton's testimony was denied. What? FBI denied that testimony in the same way they denied the recorded different. Screw it. Not worth getting into. Federal judge to unseal 180 previously redacted names. Boy, can't wait for that to come. That headline was from December of 2023, and we're still waiting. Just like the UFO documents. They're going to release it any old day now. The JFK records. We're going to know who the railroad bombs were any day now. No, we're not. Not until it becomes incumbent upon them to use that as leverage against somebody else. You walk in the truth, you don't have to worry about that. 20,000 Americans, they said, under J. Edgar Hoover. 20,000 Americans that he deemed outright subversive. And his private files upon his death included 17,000 pages. Were all locked up in his office. 17,000 pages, 165 files. He used that leverage on everyone. He was more powerful in a number of ways than any of the number of presidents that he worked for, because he had the goods. Do you think JFK wouldn't take it under advisement with what Hoover had about his little penchant for banging everybody up to and including Marilyn Monroe? Y'all need to think bigger, man. Y'all need to think bigger. In terms of the Epstein case, yeah, he was a guy. He knew some things, and he didn't. And it was a fake suicide. And he didn't kill himself. All right, yeah, it's good. It's good. You got a basic grasp on it. But y'all need to think bigger. Who's got that information now? The FBI. What is the FBI doing now to conservatives and to Christians? What are they doing? What's the bet? Where are we headed? Think bigger. It's about to get very, very ugly coming up. Nothing can stop it now. Nothing can stop it now. Trump is too big. Nothing short of a bullet is going to stop that man from taking the White House. And they know it. Get ready to see them try to exhaust every other possibility. That's what's going to happen. So anyway, bullet point number 2. Saudi did abandon the petrodollar this week. And I'm just going to touch on this briefly because the European election thing and the Chernobyl scene are way more important. But this is the way I put as a search engine for Google just to show you how slanted they are. Saudi abandons the dollar. That was the search. That was the search term. The first result it pulls up are reports of the petrodollar system's demise are fake news. Followed by Saudi Arabia just ditched the dollar. Shift away from U.S. dollar is happening in real time. So Saudi Arabia drifts away from Washington in the dollar. Prince of Saudi decides not to renew. Saudi Arabia joins BRICS and China-led central bank digital currency. They're breaking with the dollar, breaking with the dollar, breaking with the dollar. But the very first thing that popped up was from a thing called Morningstar. My Christians out there, you feel Morningstar. Stories about the collapse of the long-standing petrodollar agreement between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia spread like wildfire on social media, but the agreement never existed. You click on the article, reports of the petrodollar's demise system are fake news. You click on the article and it reads like right out of Snopes or PolitiFact, where they go down the record and item by item, yes, this is true, yes, this is true, yes, this is true, and yes, they have had that agreement for such and such a time, but the way that you phrased it, we're rating mostly false. Why do you think they're fighting so hard to control that narrative? Why do you think they're fighting so hard to control that narrative? Anytime you hear misinformation or disinformation, understand in your head and go ahead and do a little Google Translate thing for yourself. That's something they don't want you to know. When they put that out and they say that is misinformation, that's something that is entirely accurate that they do not want you to know. They had been on the petrodollar agreement for the previous 80 years. They had a chance to renew for another 50. They declined. There are two things that prop up the U.S. dollar right now. Our military power and our ability to project it, for one. And for two, the fact that up until this past week, OPEC was only trading in U.S. dollars. That is no longer the case. The BRICS nations are abandoning the dollar. The cadaver in chief has quite deliberately put this economy into a tailspin. And again, let me clarify, I'm not talking about Joe. Joe doesn't know what planet he's on. His handlers, who put their hand up their ass and make that little addled puppet dance, they have done this deliberately. They're spinning us into oblivion. And all of the Republicans in Congress that are going along with this, particularly ones that are going on in Ukraine, you want to take a look at who's most likely in those files we were just talking about? Yeah, you better come up with some money for Ukraine, Sparky. Come up with some money for Ukraine. You better vote yes on this bill. You can tell the principled from the unprincipled. Again, by their works ye shall know them. You can tell now the ones who are acting on principle versus the ones that they are not. You want to know who's not in the Epstein files? Rand freaking Paul is not in the Epstein files. You want to know who's not in the Epstein files? Josh freaking Hawley is not in the Epstein files. You want to know who's not in the Epstein files? Donald effing Trump is not in the Epstein files. By their works ye shall know them. I digress. Saudi is pulled out of the petrodollar. We are drifting, and it is only a matter of time. In the span of 4 years, because some of y'all didn't like mean tweets and spray tan, we have come undone. I hope y'all are proud of yourselves. I hope y'all are proud of yourselves. All you guys out there that voted, you knew. You knew. The ones that try that. Oh, well, I didn't realize his cognitive, okay, whatever. We didn't do anything but yell at you about it for 2 years. You watched the debate. Oh, you watched the debates, did you? And yet you want to tell me that you didn't realize his brain was slipping. But you did watch the debates, right? If you voted for this man, you were complicit. People throw that right back at me. If you voted for Trump, you're complicit. Yeah, I'm totally okay with that at this point. I didn't support him in 2016. You guys know this. We've been over it. I didn't support him in 2016. I didn't vote for him because I didn't have faith in a man. I didn't have confidence in a man. I believed a lot of the stuff that I was being told. I just knew that I hated Hillary. That's all that I knew. I didn't know anything about Trump, but I didn't trust him. Over 4 years, he won me over legitimately and honestly. Same way that he's winning over a lot of people now. The same way that the mainstream press will continue to rail on him because he is a legit enemy of the state. That was another sidetrack I didn't want to get off on. The Saudis have abandoned the dollar. Let me leave it at that. If I need to go any further, then you haven't been paying attention. But I would suggest that you do some very, very serious research into what that means for the global economy and how the entire spectrum of world power just shifted. There has never been a more important election, and even this election might not be enough to save it at this point. Neil, if you're out there watching and you are still telling people actively that they should not participate and they should not vote, you had better show up with a rope and a rifle in your hand, or you had better stay the hell off my radar. That goes for anyone. I give you my word. After 2024, after 2024, I give you my word. If they manage to steal this election, you will never hear me tell you to participate in the process again. Never. But for the sake of all that is holy, and for the sake of my own conscience, and for the sake of the future of the West, and for the sake of my deeply held and sincere hope that you do not have to be visited by the level of violence that you are going to witness should it go the other direction, I implore you with every fiber of my being, participate. Participate. At the very least, everything that happens after that, my conscience is clear. We are all doomed. We are all doomed. Ultimately, we all have to die. Oh, look over his shoulder, memento mori. Remember, you will die while you are alive. Make it count. Now, here's why, just a real quick, of why we should be able to keep our heads up. Did you guys see what happened in Europe this week? And Clem, if you're still here, I want that French perspective right now. Marine Le Pen, look at this man. I mean, Viktor Orban, he's standing strong in the face of it. The EU is trying to break him down because he won't take the refugees. Because he sees, like the rest of the world does, why do you think the tide is turning? Why do you think so many people are swinging to Trump that were supporting the other side before? Because their bullshit finally caught up with them. Immigrants are just like us. We're a nation of immigrants, and these people are only coming here for a better life. I gave you the figures on Ellis Island. We're overwhelmed, and they're seeing the results of it. The sanctuary cities that never saw an actual illegal immigrant all of a sudden got busloads of them, and they got to see what we down in Texas have been dealing with for decades. They didn't like it. Fundamentally, what came to light? Truth will ultimately prevail where there are pains taken to bring it to light. And rest assured, everything that the governor of Florida did, everything that the governor of Texas did, in shipping those You guys all over. They weren't doing anything that the federal government hadn't already done. The federal government was trying to truck them into red areas under cover of night. DeSantis said, screw that. Abbott said, screw that. We're going to send them to New York City in broad freaking daylight and see how they like it. Found out real quick. At the end of the day, the truth will out. How does that have anything to do with Europe? Because Europe is seeing it 10 times as bad as we are. We are only now getting the kind of refugees that Europe has dealt with almost exclusively. I'm talking about people who are fleeing Muslim countries and fleeing countries of sub-Saharan Africa, West Africa. That's who they've been dealing with all along. You think that Guatemalans, Salvadorans, and the Mexican criminal element are bad? Son, at least some of them are Catholic and tangentially tied to a spiritual root of the West. Animals though they are. Europe has been dealing with the worst of the worst. The left's perpetual concern for the indigenous people. We've got to take care of indigenous people. The indigenous people are under. Who are the indigenous people of Europe? Inconvenient historical fact, we are the indigenous people of Europe. We are being overwhelmed, and we are being overwhelmed by design. The World Economic Forum, the United Nations, and indeed the European Union itself are deliberately flooding these countries with African and Middle Eastern immigrants. They are illegal, they are not wanted, they are culturally incompatible, and even the most bleeding of the bleeding hearts cannot hold on to their mythology once they have bleeding heads at the hands of these animals. It's happening all over Europe now. Is it any surprise that the right wing is coming to power? Because they realize that the right wing has been speaking the truth all along. We can't keep doing this. We can't keep doing this. Hate monger, xenophobe. We can't keep doing this. And now they're in your backyard. Now you're having to pay the price for it physically as well as financially. The crime rates, the rates of rape. All you women out there controlled by your emotions and just wanting the best for those poor little immigrants. Take a look at the rape statistics in the European countries that still keep them. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. It's coming around. The European elections are a positive thing to take a look at, a very positive thing to take a look at, because it shows that the tide is turning, that we are past the tipping point. The people of Europe consistently more Pollyanna than the people of the United States, at least up until the last 20 years. The ones that were always progressive, the ones that the progressives and leftists over here were telling us we needed to model ourselves after when it came down to things like gay marriage and trans rights and every other bit of degeneracy and filth that is eroding us from the inside out. We were told to model ourselves after that. Only now, wait, they are ahead of the curve, and it's all coming around in that cyclical nature. We tried this, and we're 10 years ahead of you, and look where we got. This is bad. We better pull it back. Not with the so-called progressives. They're not going to hear about it. Gender-affirming care for minors, completely gone now in Europe. Immigration was their one weak point, because if the globalists can flood those borders and erode their national sovereignty, they are ripe for the picking. Guess who's not having it? Viktor Orban. Guess who's not having it? Giorgia Meloni. And my God, that woman is beautiful. Are y'all with me on that? I can't be alone in just thinking. And this isn't the most flattering picture, man. She looks like she's on the rag and pissed off at this dude for whatever he's saying right now. But she's still stone hot, man. Oh my God, Giorgia Meloni, outside of and her brain. Oh my God, her mind and her devotion to the culture and her devotion to Western civilization. Every time that woman opens her mouth, it makes me wish I could speak Italian. You guys know about the Reverend Bart Dictionary, right? You heard my term foot bath? Foot bath? Hashtag foot bath. You know about that little term? That's where the woman is so stunningly beautiful on every conceivable level that I am not fit to fantasize about having sex with that woman. I am only fit to fantasize about bathing her feet in precious oils bathing her feet in precious oils, while two other attending servants feed her grapes as she reads aloud in English from Oswald Spengler's Which Way, Western Man. The hell was I talking about? Sorry. Yeah, George Maloney. Yeah, she's yeah. Why do you think she has the support that she does? Because she's seen the reality of it and she's not afraid to speak the reality, speak the truth. Take a look at that. Marine Le Pen, Geert Wilders. How were they being derided and referred to just a few short years ago? The tide is turning. Look at the farmers in the Netherlands. Look at all of the European farmers and the protests that they're getting. The globalists are back on their heels. We have to take the fight to them, and we are. Every time you catch yourself getting a little bit black pilled, dude. Every time you catch yourself getting a little bit black pilled, I want you to take a look at what just happened in Europe. I want you to look at the wave of energy that is shifting right now. I want you to check yourself, sit down, and either get behind the movement or shut up. Because we're done with black pills and naysayers. We got no room for them. We don't got no love for them. We're done. Title fight. Title fight. Son of a bitch. Title fight. You're either in my corner or get out of the arena. Period. No in-betweens. Every time you get blackpilled, I want you to do this. I want you to do this little Google search, right? European elections right wing. That was the search term. You want to know what it pulled up on Google? You know, that fair and balanced search engine. EU elections. Is the far right taking over Europe? How far right parties seduced young voters across Europe. What the rise in right wing populism says about Europeans. Support for Kiev wavering. Ooh, look out. How the far right won European Parliament elections. And even since we're talking about Europe and we're talking about the right wing, I would be remiss if I did not bring up Germany. Do you know what the Germans did? They saw that the right wing, speaking up, and because you've heard this, you've heard Nancy Pelosi say this, and other prominent Democrats have said this here, that we need to lower the voting age to 16. Right? Because ideological idiot young people will generally vote for the Pollyanna policies, right? They did that in Germany. They saw that the right wing was pulling ahead. They lowered the voting age to 16, thinking that's how we cinch the vote, because the young people won't get behind these right wing extremists. We've indoctrinated them enough. They know that right wing is bad, bad, bad. So they lowered the voting age to 16 in a last ditch effort to try to take it. And you know what happened? The 16 to 18 vote went overwhelmingly for the right wing. It's on, and we're winning. So if you want to black pill somebody and you want to tell people not to participate, tell people this is the time to give in to despair and realize that it's all over and our best days are behind us, I got nothing for you, Sparky. I got nothing for you. You show up with a rope or a rifle, you take your ass back to the kids' table with the rest of your flat earth friends, sit down and shut the fuck up. That's the only F-bomb I've dropped this whole... Sorry, I'm really trying to get that under control. But I want to close with this, man, because I think this really... Oh, man, Ava. Oh, my Ava. Bill, I'm so glad you brought her up. Oh, Ava. Oh... I wish I had time to download a picture. Remind me next week. Oh, look at that. I didn't even see that. I didn't even see that Clem right there, too. Share the sentiment. Ava. Oh, let's all just take a deep breath. Ava. And it doesn't even matter if you can't pronounce her last name. That woman and that interview, all of the interviews, I literally, Bill Wade, just this week, I downloaded 6 interviews that this woman did, and I stashed them to my iPod in celebration of all the other stuff that's going on in Europe. But, wow. Oh, wow. Ava. And Georgia. Georgia on my mind. Where was I? Yeah. I want to leave it with this, because I think this is a perfect illustration of where we're at right now, both with regard to the elites and both with regard to the people that would rule over us. Did you guys have a chance to see the HBO miniseries Chernobyl? Yeah? If you haven't, you should. Did they take some liberties with it? Yes, they did. They took some substantial liberties with it. Chernobyl is close to my heart because even in my misspent youth as a Reagan kid, I was kind of a weirdo. And I would have to say that was probably my sophomore year of high school. I want to say sophomore year of high school. And I had a little shortwave radio that I would listen to because I already didn't trust the left leaning media. Them liberals, Mike Wallace and Dan Rather and all those liberals, I didn't trust them. And somebody turned me on to shortwave, and I had a shortwave radio, and I would listen to news broadcasts from overseas where it was, it was just different than what other people, because I always wanted a broader perspective. Anyway, one night I start getting these reports that radiation detectors, and keep in mind I was a nuclear obsessed kid, that radiation detectors are going off all over Europe and nobody can explain it, and radiation levels are pegging off and they're off the charts in France and in Belgium and in Scandinavia it started going off all over, and I just thought, oh my God, we're all going to die. But because I had the shortwave, and thus I had that perspective. All my high school classmates who already thought I was weird, ABC hadn't said anything about it. I didn't see anything about it. That'd be on the news if you knew anything, if it was real. I don't know what it hadn't been on the news yet. And then finally, several days later, Peter Jennings finally says something. And it turns out it's Chernobyl. This is not to puff my own pecker for always having a broader perspective and always being ahead of the curve when the masses are salivating idiots. This is not to puff my own pecker about that, but yeah. Anyway, Chernobyl, powerful. That was one that resonates with my generation, the pre-internet generation, the shortwave radio listening weirdo generations. That was a horrible disaster, arguably the worst nuclear disaster in history. HBO miniseries did take some substantial liberties with it, but overall, I have to say it was very, very well done. But the scene I'm going to refer you to, and I'm going to leave that YouTube link right there. I want you guys to write it down or come back and revisit it later, cut and paste, whatever you got to do. But go back and look at that scene. And I'm going to kind of break it down for you really quick because it dealt with something that really happened during that crisis. In the middle of it, they finally figured out that they were going to need to dig a tunnel underneath the molten elements of the reactor core and bring everything out from underneath, or it was going to collapse into the water table and poison the water all the way to the Black Sea for a century. Well, it was the Soviet Union because of information control, because they were, what the Biden administration wants to be now. They had total control over information. They were limiting who could say what, and all these things that you're hearing are disinformation, and believe nothing that doesn't come from an official source. So anyway, they had to go get miners. They had to get miners, and they had to get them from Tula, right? Because that region was more in line. There were mines in Donbass that were closer, but it was dealing with a different kind of substrate and a different kind of mining, so they couldn't use the ones who were closest. So they went and got miners from Tula, and there was a scene in there that dramatizes the presentation. But this minister shows up at a mine in Tula. He shows up at this mine in Tula, and he says, we need everybody to get on the trucks. We need everybody to get on the trucks. And for some reason, one of my pictures is missing. And the miner, the head of the miners, steps up and says, no, this is our mine. We don't get on the truck. This is our mine. We don't get on the trucks unless we know where we're going. The minister says to him, have you heard about what's going on in Chernobyl? The man says, only what you've told us. And the minister has to confront the leader of the mine workers, the head of the union, for lack of a better word. What we have told you is not true. It is a bad situation. It stands to poison the water there. We need your skills and your expertise to dig a hole under Chernobyl, and we have mere days to make this happen. Before he does this, he tells them, get on the trucks, and they say, no, we're not going to do that. He was like, I've been sent here to order you to the trucks, and the head of the miners looks back at the minister and gets kind of cocky with him. And the two soldiers that are with him say, "You can't talk to him like that. He's a minister." And the head of the miners basically gives him the equivalent of an F you. "Go ahead and start shooting us then," he says. "You haven't got enough bullets for all of us. And the ones that are left will beat you to a bloody pulp." The minister finally has to cop to it and say, "Look, we need your help because we are in dire straits." With that, the head of the miners turns to the other guys that are working the mines, says, "Come along, boys." And on the way out, this is the power of the scene. On the way out, every one of them, their coal stained hands, every one of them, starting with the leader, puts a coal stained hand on this guy's beautiful blue suit. And every one of the other miners follows suit. They leave a handprint on his clothing. They leave a handprint on his face because they know they don't really have a choice. Sooner or later, somebody will come along with enough soldiers, but they are making this decision based on principle. Why? Because Russia. Because Russia. They are doing their part for the fatherland. Because at the end, they are devout what? They are devout what? Nationalists. They are doing their part for their people and their nation. But on the way out, they are letting this minister know in a very physical, very tangible way who's really in control here. To say to him, "We're not doing this because you're ordering us to. We are doing this because it is the right thing." That is the essence of where we are now. As white Europeans, as advocates of Western civilization, as Americans, as Christians, we would have every right now to sit back and go, "Oh, this is where you've arrived. We tried to tell you every step of the way not to do this, and you did it anyway, and now you need the working class, you need the nationalists, you need the pale faces, you need the Peckerwoods, you need the blue collar workers, you need us to save you. Because you're being buried in the results of your own bullshit." We are those miners now. We are the men from the Tula coal mine. The ministers from the so-called conservatives that were supposed to advocate for us, they're in dire straits right now. We will rise for our nation in a moment of crisis. But we are letting them know with that black palm print on that pretty blue suit, we're not doing this because we like you, and we're certainly not doing it because we don't have a choice. We are doing it because it is the right thing to do. We are compelled in our hearts. We are compelled by our conscience. We are compelled by our faith, for those of you who shared it. We look at what is going on in this world. We look at how you have unraveled it against our admonitions, against our begging, our pleading, our cajoling, our imploring. You wrecked it. We told you this was coming, and you went ahead and you wrecked it anyway on your own volition, and we would be so right on any objective moral level to go, "You know what? Screw every one of you guys. Screw every one of you guys. We tried to talk you out of it. You made this bed. You freaking lay in it. You created this chaos. You be the one to deal with it." We would be right to do that. But that is not who we are. That is not who we are. As white Europeans, that's definitely not who we are. And you are seeing it among the indigenous people of Europe in nation after nation. They have treated nationalism as if it were a vile obscenity. But you are seeing the fire of the Europeans. You are seeing the fire of the French, of the Germans, of the Italians. You are seeing the fire of the West. You are seeing the fire of those last remnants of civilization. What does God say in the scripture? What does God say in the scripture? You remember Elijah? You remember Elijah calling down fire from heaven? It looked like dark times for him too, but God always leaves what? God always leaves a remnant. He always leaves a remnant. Always leaves a remnant. Even in the darkest of times, God leaves a remnant. And what you are looking at now in Europe, just like you're looking at here, is that remnant. We've been down so long that we forgot y'all ever knew we were here. We have been down so long that the bottom looks like up. We have been down so long that we have forgotten what it is to entertain hope, to so much to the point where anytime hope comes our way, we almost reject it reflexively because we don't know what it's like to win anymore. Elijah must have felt like that, but he kept his faith. Elijah and that small little modicum of people, that was the remnant. And what you're seeing at work now in Europe is the remnant of our spiritual anchor. Christianity and Catholicism. You stifle that Judeo stuff. Keep it out of my face. Christianity and Catholicism, they are experiencing a revival in Europe. The people are feeling a fire in their hearts. They're feeling a fire of nationalism in their souls, and they are expressing it in the fire of their actions. God bless every last one of them. If we go out, if it fails, at least we went out doing the right thing. Like those coal miners from Tula, the big black handprint. Don't be afraid. There is no shame and there is no sin of pride in leaving that handprint on that pretty blue suit and putting it out in their faces and saying, we are doing this not for you. For all those people close to you, your family members, your friends that you tried to warn, that ignored you, that treated you like you were an idiot, that called you deplorable, that rejected you, that judged you. There is no sin of pride in putting that black handprint on that pretty blue suit and letting them know, I am not doing this for you. You deserve everything that is coming to you. I am not doing this for you. I am doing this for my blood, for my people, for my Lord, and for the principle of doing the right thing. Go forward in that light with fury, wearing the full armor of God, and we are going to take this thing back. We are going to save the West. We are going to preserve Christendom. Omnia ad regnum Deus vult. We are going to win this thing. And if we fall daring boldly to where when God welcomes us home, he can say to us, well done, my good and faithful servant. And we will cleanse our wounds and eat at the table with the king. The boss man and the carpenter will honor our actions because our actions have honored them. If that's the hill to die on, I'll carry the cross right to the top of that hill, and I'll die right beside any damn one of y'all. I am a reverend, and that is the gospel. I'm going to close with a prayer, man. I'm on fire tonight, son. Lord God, help us look to the blessings. Help us look to the light. Help us look to the signs that we are going to prevail. Renew our faith, renew our spirit, renew our strength, Lord. Renew our devotion. For the people who walk with the West but do not walk in the faith, I will die honorably beside any single one of them. Because they are walking righteous, even if they are not walking in the truth and walking in the light. They are walking, they are moving forward, they are carrying the burden. We are your humble servants, Lord. We ask only that you use us to the best of each one of our abilities as a vessel for your will and your word. If it comes to preaching the word and bringing them back to the light through word, then let it be like that. If it comes to the fight, and gird our loins, knuckle us up, steel our spines, and get us ready for that, Lord. But we stand ready. Many of us can already see the signs. We can already see the light. We have already heard the word. We're just waiting on the battle call, Lord. We're just waiting on the battle call. every one of us will stand, and if necessary, every one of us will fall proudly for the sake of your word, the civilization that it is inspired, and the blood of your children who carry it forward. Help us to find it, Lord. Help us to find it within ourselves. The courage, the strength, the tenacity to be who you need us to be. As said in the book of Esther, for such a time as this. I pray these things in the name of the risen Christ whom I ever serve. Amen and amen. Feeling it tonight, y'all. Feeling it tonight. I'm glad y'all are here. I'm really, really glad y'all are here. Right. Always trust the experts. Black Sea next month. I'm a nationalist. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I love y'all for being here, man, and I especially love y'all for chasing me around, going through those production difficulties at the beginning, man. Sometimes it doesn't always roll smooth, but we're gonna get that word out, y'all. We're gonna get that word out, and I'm gonna make sure. I'm trying to come at y'all filled with the Spirit. I'm trying to let the Spirit speak through me. I'm trying to develop that Spirit in y'all, man. Trying to develop that Spirit in y'all. A lot of y'all already have it. Most of y'all, I would say, already have it to a greater or lesser degree. For the ones that are out there that are listening that don't have it, I'm going to find a way to inspire you, son. I'm going to find a way that the word that issues forth from my mouth will bring you home to the light. I haven't got time for games anymore, man. None of us have time for games anymore. We got to be ready. We got to be ready for what's coming because it ain't coming. It's already here. It's already here. And I got to tell you, man, as a man of faith, it feels good to be walking in the light. It feels good to be walking in the light. I read the book, spoiler alert, we win. But it's going to get dark and it's going to get ugly, and I'm not going to promise you anything otherwise. Y'all got to get ready. Put your face in some scripture. Between the scriptures and the Stoics, help you to find the sanity to bring you back to the light. It's getting rough, y'all. These next few months are going to be something. Oh, Dennis, I'm so glad. Yeah, I made y'all wait to the very, very end because a lot of y'all were like, what about the Hunter Biden verdict? What about the Hunter Biden verdict? I got a very short one for you. Independent of everything else, the fact that there were 100 crimes, the fact there were 100 other crimes that he should have been tried for, should have been accused for, speaking strictly with regard to the Hunter verdict in the case of the gun. Spoiler alert, gentlemen, and many of y'all knew this. I have 4 words for the fact that Hunter was found not guilty of that particular crime. That crime and that crime only, I have 4 words in response to that verdict. Shall not be infringed. I don't have to like Hunter. I certainly don't. Once upon a time, I would have partied with him just for the story. Yeah, I don't have to like him. It was a gun charge for an unconstitutional gun law. And in and of itself, that verdict and that verdict alone shall not be infringed. I will take you back to the Mencken quote. H.L. Mencken said, if you were going to defend people's rights, that you spend the majority of your time defending scoundrels. Because it is they who have the right stripped away first. And if it's to be stopped, it must be stopped then or it won't be stopped at all. Okay? You want to talk about top-level scoundrel? Hunter Biden. You look up scoundrel in the dictionary, you'll find his picture in you'll find his picture in the sub references. But with regard to that gun conviction and that gun convention only, shall not be infringed. His dad is going to pardon him, but the fact of the matter is his dad shouldn't have to. Not on that. And his dad shouldn't have any stroke, and all the rest of the other things that he did. That man deserves to be publicly flogged. But we're not speaking about that. We're speaking about the gun charge. 4 words, shall not be infringed. Hunter deserved to walk. I bet you never thought you'd hear that from me. And anyway, in any case, guys, I'm going to throw this. I'm passing around the digital collection plate like I always do. I'm on Facebook Pay. I'm on Cash App. I'm on Venmo. I'm on PayPal. I'm on all that good stuff. If you got some coin and you want to throw down, that would be cool if anything that I say touches or helps or changes or anything. But again, I'm working right now. So this is a labor of love for me right now. I am working. I don't need any of the offerings to that's pretty clever, Clem. Um, I don't need any offers to get by, but I certainly appreciate them. So if you want to kick down, that's cool. Again, Reverend Bart, PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, all that other stuff, Facebook Pay, I'm on all that good stuff. Sadly, though, we are still in a Biden economy, reluctantly, for at least another couple of months. Hopefully, no longer than that. We're going to be living with the remnants of it. But in any case, I understand some of you guys aren't in a position to throw down, and I totally get that too. Here's what you can do for me. Repost this, man. The good version, not the two that I screwed up early. They just repost it. Send them out, man. Fat, toothless cripple, crane operator with some opinions. He gets on and rants and raves for a couple hours every Sunday. I think he's a like-minded and kindred spirit. I think you may dig it. Get on out there and post that, brother. Get on out there and post that. Repost it to your friends on your Twitter feed, your Facebook page, or whatever. Please spread the gospel, man. Extend that reach. Smash that like button, like Roman is always saying, to bump us up in the algorithm. Another one of those college words. Here's what you can do, though, above and beyond any of that. Not just for me, but for yourselves. Stone, what do we do, baby? What do we do, baby? Stone, what do we do? Live the three. Live the three. What the hell is he talking about? Live the three. What the hell is the three? The three, man. Live the three. It's the prime directives, y'all. Prime directives. First of all, be the signal over the noise. We live in a world where they will bury you with the noise, man. Try to make you think that all that exists is noise, and they will try to smother it in it. You have to be the signal that punches through the noise. You've got to be strong enough to punch that signal through the noise. Light in a world full of darkness, directive number 2. They will try to smother you with the darkness. They will try to bury you in the darkness. They will demoralize you. They will dehumanize you. They will emasculate you with the darkness. Trying to make you think that's all it is. You not only have to carry the light, you have to be the light. And if you're going to be the light, you carry that light. You've got to punch that through the fog of that darkness. Carry that light through the darkness and through to the other side. Blind them in the face of their own darkness with the light, which leads me to the third and final rule, the iron rule, the prime directive number 3, strength in a world full of weaknesses. Sometimes that strength is here, and sometimes it's here, and even here. The most important. Why? Because without strength, nothing else matters. If you don't have strength, you're not going to have the punch to get that signal through the noise. If you don't have strength, you're not going to have the tenacity, the endurance, the drive to punch that light through the darkness. So strength above all. And when you pray, strength, clarity, and discernment, man, pray for those things that will steer you right every time. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. I appreciate y'all being here, man. I love y'all. God bless y'all for showing up. God bless y'all for sticking with it. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Boss man's got your back. Boss man's got the plan. Carpenter's got your back. Y'all just got to walk in truth. Walk in light. Knuckles up. Fight's coming. Be ready. I love y'all. God bless. See you next Sunday. Peace. I love y'all, man.